What have you completed this week? If rehearsing, what scenes did you work on? Well, firstly, in the week we focused on our breathing exercises and finding a diaphragm. And before we did anything else, we got into pairs and made sure each of us was standing in a neutral position before singing, which is really important. We were then told to hold our breath and then sing the lines "Made in Dagenham," followed by "Storm Clouds." And we realised how much of a positive impact our neutral positions had on our vocal cords, as we couldn't we could hold the note a lot longer and had more power than if we were slouched, because we run out of much quicker. Then we focused on accents. The first exercise that we were told to do was pronounce the vowels A, E, I, O, U in a Dagenham, posh and northern accent. This helped our articulation of the sounds and highlighted the letters we need to focus on when talking in our chosen accent. These were described as clear, distinct exercises. These exercises were designed to make our accent more clear and distinct, which will convince the audience that we are from that area. Then we explored projection, which is really important in theatre, because if the audience can't hear you, then they'll lose out on half the plot and probably will lose interest. So I paired with Joe, who plays Mr. Hopkins, and we picked a line and repeated it, and once we said it one time we had to take a step back, so each time we were getting further away. I picked the line "They're duck eggs," which and I focused obviously the U in duck and the E in eggs, which I think all in all I improved my projection, and it made me think more about how I need to carry that accent over to all my other lines. And then we divided into groups, so people who had to use a Dagenham accent sat and watched clips, and myself, Chloe, Connor and Chris, who had different accents, went into another room and looked at clips that would help influence us on how to do our accents. So I looked at the Lisa clips from the Made in Dagenham movie, and understood that all her lines were mostly really calm. She took her time with pronouncing all the words, and there was never like a worried or stressed moment with her. So I'm going to make sure that as long as I'm not stressed, I'm really I'm polite and quite soft at first, but then obviously as the plot develops you can see a tougher side to her. Later in the week I also completed a scene with Rita after the letter, and I find that Rita's in a bit of a state because Eddie has left and taken the kids with him. So I'm trying to console her and trying to put her back on track and remind her how important it is to go through with the speech. And in the end I kind of educate her of the famous historic figures such as Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, which hopefully in the end has made her realise that she needs to persevere with it, because it's so important, because she realises it's so important to women, and she's got so many followers that she can't back down now. What went well in the scene? I think we both realised that our intention for each character, Lisa being the one to try and console Rita and put her back on track and make sure that she does persevere with it and give the speech that everybody's been waiting for, and remind her how much people are backing her, even if she doesn't see it at the moment. And Amy knew that this is probably Rita's lowest point, because she realizes that if she doesn't have a kids, if she doesn't have a husband, then there's really no point in it. And so Lisa's job is to make her see how much of an impact she'll make to women's lives if she pulls off this speech. And Lisa's intelligent enough to know that Rita can do it, and she does have the stamina and determination of a historical figure like Rosa Parks. We also used a technique where Rita just keeps going on and on about how stressed she is and what's happened with Eddie and the kids, and I have to repeat the name Rita in an attempt to, in as a calm way as I possibly can in that situation, which made us realise that Rita needs to be so stressed to a point where I realised that I need to calm her down. Didn't go so well in the scenes. I think when Amy handed me the piece of paper with Eddie's writing on for the first time, I fiddled with it too much, and I think it kind of got in the way of the emotional aspect of the scene. So I was paying more attention to the piece of paper than I was to Rita's feelings, and it's really important to show that Lisa is there for Rita, and it's just and it's kind of probably like the first of many times that she will be there for her, and it really shows how much the friendship has developed over the course of the play. So I think I probably wasted a bit more time as we had to kind of go over it, and we had to think of a line where I had a reason to put it down. But I think the problem was resolved in the end. What do you need to improve on for the next session? I feel like when we go back over the scene which we blocked, I need to pay attention to Rita and less attention to the objects around me and the props that I'm using, such as the piece of paper, because it does get in the way of the emotional aspect the scene requires. So it's really important for me just to focus on Rita and no one else, because it makes it clear to the audience that I am there for Rita, and it's the first of many times that we'll always be there for each other, because it just shows how much the friendship has developed over the course of the play. And also, if we do the last scene that I'm in, where I talk about Mr. Hopkins not seeing me working even though I have a first in Cambridge, I feel like I need to acknowledge the audience a little more, just to show that whatever situation you were in those days, if you were a woman, you were always looked over, even if you do have the qualifications. So it's kind of just to show the audience that whether you work in a factory or you've had the best education, men in the 60s didn't just didn't really think of women as being any help to a job at all. Even Barbara Castle, who was obviously very intelligent. What songs, dances did you focus on? We focused on quite a few. We blocked through a lot, but we mainly focused on Busy Woman, Storm Clouds, and Everybody Out because we were introduced with the two kids who were going to be in the performance, and so we went through those songs especially so the kids knew what they were doing. What went well in the songs? I definitely think everyone's facial expressions had a lot more meaning to the song in Busy Woman, as I think as I was watching it, like all the girls really looked irritated at the end, and they kind of they all had the same facial expression, but they delivered it in a different way. And I think it added to the scene because the whole point of Busy Women is just to show how many little jobs that women do that men don't, and how irritated they get because they're never thanked for it and they just have to do it every day, which obviously must be really annoying. So I think they portrayed that really well in their facial expressions. In Storm Clouds, I think it's important for Rita, Beryl, Claire, Cass and Sandra to have their moment of realising how tough this strike might be as the strike pays so little. And I think again that they all the girls kind of share the same facial expressions, and they all look like they're still together in that group, but they're kind of like losing hope by each song. So I think that's really important. And I just think the general fluidity of everyone else's movement, I think that everyone's starting to really think about their character, and it's definitely portraying in the songs. And yeah, it really fits the mood and the atmosphere of the songs. What didn't go well? I think the timing in Storm Clouds for Lisa Tooley and Mr. Hopkins' scene. So I think I pulled the table out a little too early, so we were kind of sitting on the table for a little while before actually starting our scene. When it kind of should be to a point, like we should sit down as soon as the last note is sang. I think also from a dancer's point of view who sat and watched like some of the songs, she said that it didn't look like we were putting enough it didn't look like we were putting any effort into our singing in Storm Clouds. So it kind of looked like we weren't bothered. I think this is probably because some of us aren't singing the higher notes like myself, so we kind of pretend to sing. So we need to make sure that it looks like we are singing, that we are dedicated in hitting that high note. What do you need to improve for the next session? Definitely I think probably listening to the soundtrack of Storm Clouds and making sure and kind of timing how long it takes to get the table and chairs out so that we all sit down in unison just as the note is ending, just so that it's at constant speed every time. And also it's really important for the scene at the dinner table to not be rushed or to be too slow, so that the music tutor doesn't run out of doesn't keep going or like stops at a point, because otherwise it would wreck the rest of the song. And so I think it's really important to run through the lines in the scenes in Storm Clouds, so that it's always